They do more civic involvement, and they pay more tax. They earn more. They pay more taxes, and so it benefits everyone.
And there's a statistic I found, and in fact, it was research that you shared with me, Karen, that even though enrollment rates into college continue to rise, a discrepancy. We'll use that word since I think I just made up the other one. A discrepancy in terms of income. Families that have a higher income have a higher enrollment in college. Families with lower incomes have less enrollment into college. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Regardless, though, even though it's harder at a lower income and it requires a change and it requires a drive, women are figuring it out. And so I would like, and maybe either one or both, I would love to hear your thoughts on that. This concept of, I know what I want and I am going after it, regardless of my circumstance. That's a very powerful perspective. And so I'd like to hear what your experiences are firsthand as part of, as leading the organization, so that we can hear, yes, it is possible. And these people, women, everybody surround us every day.
We do have lots of great examples. We have some success stories on our website that people have shared with us. And we hear directly from our recipients what an impact, even a little bit of help. Our scholarships are modest sized, but even a little bit of help makes a difference. And of course, many women are cobbling together the finances to make it work. Rita, what's your experience been?
Yeah, when I decided to go back to school was actually I was pregnant with my daughter and decided I wanted to, I need a career. I can't just be working jobs, and I wanted to be a good role model. So the first few years of school, I worked two jobs. I worked 7 days a week and went to school on the part-time job days and pushed through it. In the time it was pretty intense, but looking back it just seems like it was a million years ago. So I think one of the nice thing about women, especially parents, we're so adaptable. We just know, like, hey, this is how it's going to be. You sign up for that change and this is how it's going to be. This is what we're going to do, and you just roll with it.
You just roll with it. I wish it were that easy.
Yeah.
You make it sound, it's not that easy.
No.
And that, looking back though, it's like, what else is there to do? We
Yeah.
show up, we figure it out, and we keep going. And there's a lot of problem solving skills in that. And using the word cobble, Karen, that you used, and then figuring it out, rolling with it, that you were talking about, Rita, there's this concept of this innate problem solving that women that are choosing to improve themselves and their families are willing to take. And maybe it's inherent and maybe it's not. I think I've seen both in the women in my life that are still willing to do what it takes to figure it out and to be willing to, make a few mistakes along the way, and being a true role model is, hey, what do I do when I fall down? And I'd like to know, is there a time where all of the piecing things together, and this is all of life really, the piecing of things together was harder and you didn't know how you were going to get through, and what was the outcome of that? What was that, the piece that gave you the light at the end of the tunnel?
I know. So one of those two jobs that I was working was at a grocery store, and I just remember looking around, and everyone I worked with was really miserable, and they were no longer willing to be flexible with school. And I made the scary decision to leave that job. That was my full time job, knowing that I have a child at home to support, and just kind of had to work through. It was a little scary for a few months, but it worked out. Found another job. I worked several jobs until I found a full-time job. And um you just, as long as you know you're doing the right thing and you believe that, and that's something that's powerful to you, that will drive you all the way. And it's amazing with children. They're so resilient and flexible and understanding. They push through with you and they're like, oh mom, it's okay. And in the end, it's setting good examples for them too, for them to see you persevere and push through things that are hard.
Oh, that generational change, it comes from breaking the mold. And Rita, it sounds like you're breaking the mold every single day. And Karen, leading this organization that awards scholarships to women that want to break the mold and make that more possible for them. is pretty amazing, because it is hard to go against what we are conditioned to do. I mean, our reactions when we are pressured into something, what do? We revert to something in the past in a similar situation. And we may go at the end of it, we may go, I didn't know I had that in me anymore. I thought I'd worked through all of it. At the same point in time, we might get through and go, wow, I did work through that and I am different. And I just had the chance to prove that difference. And that's a really neat feeling inside when we're thinking about problem solving and approaching the world. And I'd like to just make sure that we talk about that in the sense of this push to change and the willingness to take that step, knowing that the ground will be underneath us, or to take that step thinking that we're on a cliff and knowing that we have wings. I think
I would add to that too. As women, we really rely on like our social networks and our interaction with people, and receiving a scholarship isn't just a financial support. It's also someone saying, hey, I believe in you. I know you can do this. I know you can pull through. And we really depend on that. And sometimes that's just the saving grace, knowing that not only are we financially able to do this, that other people believe in us. They know we're going to do it. And so that emotional support is there too. It's really important.
Did you get that from CWEF? Yeah.
Did I get what?
Did you get that from CWEF?
What I just said?
The emotional support, the network?
Yes. Yeah. And I actually, out of many of the scholarships I've received, CWEF has been extremely engaged. They're really passionate. They really reach out and connect with their recipients, which is a huge difference compared to other scholarships that I've received.
That's good to hear. And it's something that we care about and want to do. And we have heard from other scholarship recipients that they're not receiving support from some of the people in their lives. Friends and family may not be as engaged with the outcome as the individual is. And I mean, I can think of at least one of our scholarship recipients who said nobody cared about whether she was how she was doing in school, whether she was doing okay. Only CWEF cared about how she was doing and was tracking her progress. And it was really important to her. And that's hugely rewarding for us as an organization, because we want to make a difference in more than financial ways. We want to support women so that they can succeed.
I'm still thinking about this because to me, it's innate. To me, this is one of the things, and I see it around me, the innate in people, yet I'm thinking now about being in a role. I'm thinking as a leader in an organization that has staff, when I have somebody who just innately will understand what the available resources are, ask questions if they don't know what the available resources are, they're willing to ask for help because there's either a pressure or a need or a lack of a skill that we have. And they're just doing this. And what I find fascinating is those are the people that we really want on our teams. And if they're the ones that want to go improve themselves, to increase their own personal fulfillment, to be able to give back and support others later, to be able to be active and want to contribute to something bigger over time and right now, right? We've got this innate thing, and I think it's easily overlooked. Can you think of a trait that is important, Karen, and that you have, Rita, that really is a benefit that often maybe isn't said out loud is beneficial, but is beneficial based off of the makeup of the candidates and your individual self in the workplace?
Well, I think persistence and resilience are two maybe overlooked traits that make a huge difference for women pursuing their educations.
Yeah, I would say probably the ones that translate most in my workplace are the desire to learn, like you said, just wanting to learn more and understanding more, and just kind of, instead of just going with the flow on things, always pushing and what else can I gain or learn from this. And then I think for myself personally, and I see this as a good benefit to my team, is that that I'm empathetic, and I try to understand where other people are coming from, and I try to understand other people's communication types or what their interaction styles are, and that really translates well too.
Thank you for sharing. One of the traits that I think is often overlooked is just the willing to stop and look and listen. I don't know if that's one skill or three. I might have just broken my own question there. That's all right. You know, this concept of using what we see, what we hear, what we're observing as the outcomes of what's already going on around us, and then figuring out how to best navigate that. What is our choice in moving forward? Can we move forward? Do we need to find another path before we ever take that first step? And that's an often overlooked skill too that I think of when I was preparing for this program. All right, so we have a question from Jack in our audience. Jack is asking, what are some of the biggest challenges that women leaders face today? And what is a good practice to start approaching resolving them?
So I can speak to this. I work in IT, which is traditionally a male dominated field. And I think what I notice things such as maybe a colleague will ask me a question, and then without truly listening to my response, will just kind of immediately go to someone else with the same question and essentially get the same answer. What I noticed though is, as far as how women are treated in the workplace, I think there's not enough awareness. I don't think people consciously are um, fielding out women this way. I think there should be good conversation of saying, going back to that person and say, "Hey, you asked me to come to the table as an expert on this topic. Then, I would expect that you would respect my opinion on that." Or, just kind of bringing some of these shifts in awareness and in the workplace in general.
I think there's a fair amount of unconscious bias, and so that's not intentional or overt, but I think it happens. And I think women are often underestimated or misunderstood because despite the attempt to have things be egalitarian and equal, they aren't always. And even though our brain power or horsepower is similar across genders, the way we think about things and how we express ourselves is different. And so often, just between the two genders, there's miscommunications because we communicate differently. And I think that broadening our way of listening and understanding would help immensely, so that men and women leaders can appreciate each other's diverse skills.
There's so much I want to say.
Well, I think I would even add to, I talked about always wanting to learn and stuff. And part of the reason that I'm excited to be in IT is because you really have to always be learning. You have to keep your knowledge sharp. And one of the ways that you do that is by attending like networking events or traveling to conferences and such. And I can say, as a single parent, sometimes this can be really challenging, going to a networking event that's on a Wednesday night, that's from, 7 to 10 at night, when I have a kid at home that I really need to take care of. And I think sometimes those opportunities feel limited just based on whatever my home life looks like. So that can be a challenge as well.
You make such a good point.
I would agree that that's a challenge. And I think that that's a significant career impediment.
Mm-hmm.
A book I read many years ago when I was in the workforce, it's a book by, I think, Terry Apter. It talked about, the title of it is "Working Women Don't Have Wives."
Right.
And,
okay, and that was not life, that was wife.
Wives.
That's right.
That's right.
And she talks about it in the book of what an impediment that is. And this was many years ago when traditional families often had, there might have been a male executive, and the wife did a lot of things that were supportive and were helpful that made a difference to the career, like staying home watching the kids so that the executive can be off and doing things that advance his career and, of course, improves life for the family. Women who are flying solo don't have that many options for managing their life, so it is more of a challenge. It's doable, but it's a challenge.
I think one way I'm just trying this out lately. So on the side, I also run my business self-directing system. And what I find is that, sometimes in my free time at home, I have to, run payroll, pay taxes, or review contracts, whatever it is. And my daughter's like, Mom, it doesn't even feel like you're done with school. But what I've been trying lately is to engage her more and involve her more, and kind of, it's going to take me an hour or two extra, but kind of explaining what I'm doing, and, hopefully igniting more of her entrepreneur spirit too. But I think that's one of the little things that may help, just engaging them more and just letting them be as involved as possible.
I think the lemonade stand of the past is exactly what you just described, Rita. It's working next to a mother or a father and learning that business, learning that role, learning that space that takes up time, sometimes even at home, and being able to see what that flow looks like, and giving our kids, the next generation, an opportunity to go, yeah, okay, I get this, or at least having more experience to go, I don't like this and I do like this. I don't like this and I do like this. And that's really where a lot of opportunity comes from. I'm thinking about this thing about tips. And I know Eva and Scott are back there going, oh, she's going to say it again. Well, I am. It's about awareness. I'm thinking about patterns, right? And your comments, Karen, about unconscious bias are what made me think of it. This concept of patterns. Are we willing to explore the patterns in our life to see, and in our life meaning the patterns we find ourselves engaged in some capacity, and find out, are they limiting us? Are they preventing us from having the fullest access to resources, people, and information and knowledge? Are they detrimental or supportive to our teams? And when it's less than optimal, are we willing to prioritize that to make a change? Now, it's not an exact science in terms of steps, but those are the broad strokes of, am I willing to find the patterns? Am I willing to accept the patterns? Can I actually choose patterns and see them, the ones that aren't helping right now? And maybe they're old, maybe they've never been helpful, maybe we didn't know they existed, and take that unconscious and bring it to the conscious. Because our brains like to take shortcuts. You know what I mean? We're all trying to be super efficient all the time. And when our brains are taking shortcuts, we've decided that because it happened in the past, we can repeat it again. And being able to remove the assumption of that and evaluate that on occasion is a great way to then find out what challenges are facing women in our workforce, what challenges are facing us in our roles. How do you feel about that, ladies?
Well, it kind of fits in with something that came up in conversation yesterday. I was speaking with one of our former scholarship recipients, and she was telling me about a position that was posted at work that one of her coworkers was absolutely perfect for. And she was intending to apply for that position. It was would have been a promotion, would have been extra money. And she went home and talked to her husband about it, and came back the next day, and the scholarship recipient asked her, did you apply for it? It had a very short timeline on it. And her coworker said, no. My husband and I talked about it, and we decided, not to rock the boat. And so she didn't go for an opportunity that she was well qualified for, that ended up going to a man who was perhaps less qualified, had less time on the workplace. And so that there's a way, a pattern of either not challenging or not pushing forward can inhibit women, and who knows what wonderful opportunities are getting passed by when we don't push ourselves and challenge ourselves to break the patterns.
Now, this leads into the next comment. There's a comment from Maya in our audience, and she's saying, I have this feeling that women often set too high expectations of themselves, not being aware that it holds them down, right? So here we go back to that pattern concept. And I was like, great addition to this part of the conversation. And then she's actually asking a question to follow this comment. How can I help women around me and myself get feedback, right? Include myself in that feedback loop, have other women included in that feedback loop so that they are more often recognized for their values and their qualities. How can we do that?
I think a powerful thing that's really hard to learn is the value of saying no to something. So sometimes when we want to meet the expectations of our coworkers or our bosses, we tend to take more things on. And yeah, I think we do set the standard kind of high, but being realistic about what our actual ability to deliver, whether it's at home or at work or in our friendship, is pretty important. And being able to say, that's not going to help me meet my objectives, or this is going to inhibit what I'm trying to do with whatever task. It's really important to be able to say no. And then I think too, the women tend to need more validation more often. So I mean, we can be more supportive of other women in the workplace, and saying if someone took on a task that was really difficult and delivered well, we should let them know, like, hey, I just want to say so and so did a really great job with that difficult task, and making sure we acknowledge each other and build each other up.
I agree completely. I think that for women to support other women wholeheartedly is hugely valuable. And also for us not to be afraid to ask for feedback when we're not getting enough. And there's a huge lack of appropriate feedback in a lot of places. And women are often given almost exclusively negative feedback. We generally know or hear about it when we've made a mistake. We often don't hear about it when we've done well and have grown and showed our mettle. Sometimes that we just expect that no one's going to say something about that, no one's going to notice, and we expect high performance of ourselves. But if we ask for feedback in a way that said, what did you notice that I did well that I should continue doing? What did you notice that I probably need to continue to work on? We can get real valuable feedback.
Oh, that thing called feedback. Oh, go ahead. What did you say?
It's huge. Feedback is huge. It is very valuable for us. Feedback that's hard to take.
I think finding good feedback is important too. I found over the years that I really like direct people that are just going to just cut to the chase and speak to me directly. And I think seeking out those people that will give you the most honest, direct feedback is important. And also when you're asking for feedback, it kind of opens the table that people know, like, hey, she's interested in improving whatever it is that she's working on, and how can I contribute to that.
There's a thing we do in our house that I do in Girl Scouts as well. And I also do it in client meetings, is that I notice things and I say that, right? This can be a good thing, a neutral thing, or a not good thing. So at home, we've got I noticed when you did something good, neutral, and not so good. Everywhere else, it's more the neutral, meaning there's a place to up level, or a good that we can work from a strength. And it's, I notice that. And I say what I notice. And then at the end, I repeat, I noticed that. And all it does is it calls attention to that one action, that one behavior, that one trait. And it could be something like, I noticed you've worn blue 3 times this week. I noticed that. I mean, that's a neutral thing. It's saying you're observing. It's making a connection. And it might be exactly what somebody needs to be able to go, hey, she notices me. Maybe I can ask this person for feedback. Can I start building this trust? And so I feel like, even though it came from a parenting book and I love it and it's very useful, it's one of those things where it's a great way to show compassion for each other. And when we have a little bit more compassion and we're willing to put ourselves out there and be like, hey, I noticed you wore blue 3 times this week. I noticed that. It's kind of an interesting thing that people go, oh, look, I'm not unknown all the time. Oh, look, there's something that we can build from. And coming as a woman, as a powerful woman, I also think that plays into a part too. The stronger we are as women, the more direct we are as women, we also tend to be a little intimidating. I think we could take out the word little and just say intimidating. I know there are occasions that I have been labeled with the word intimidating, right? And so I'm like, okay, so this is another way for me to show a connection at a different level. There's more to it than just whatever's swirling around me and the way places that I'm going. It's whatever's around you and the places that you're going as well. Okay, this is the voice of Bold Business Radio. You are listening to program number 170, The Power of Education. This is our station break, so make sure that you've already heard half this conversation. Wherever you're listening, rate it, like us, tell us what you're thinking using hashtag VBB Radio. And by the way, what Karen and Rita are sharing today is so important, and we can use this wherever we are in our career, wherever we are on our life path, to really begin to figure out where we are, what we want, and maybe we already know what we want, so where we're going and how to do it in a different way, and being able to uplift everybody else around us to the best of our ability where we can without becoming a martyr in the process. And we were just talking about noticing. We're just talking about feedback loops. And so we want to know your experiences. What are your experiences in your position that worked or didn't work when you were broaching the topic of going for more education in a more formal sense, or even in an informal sense, or even a new passion or idea that you have that you want to figure out for your company, for your community, for your life. Now we're going to just jump right in because we have another question, and this one is from Amanda. She's using hashtag VBB Radio, and she's asking, and stating, I'm aware that changing myself will change my surroundings, but to make the change easier, what do I do to gain the support of my peers and family?
I'd love to answer that. And to me, the most important thing is just to ask for it. To say what you need. When I went back to graduate school while I was working full time, and my team asked me, "What can we do to support you?" They were on board. They were terrific, and they asked what they could do. I told them what they could do to help, and they did, and that it was very significant for me to have the help from them, because while I was completing my master's degree, they really did a great job of helping one another and stepping in to pick up things that I was struggling with. They did all kinds of things to be supportive. And so when I was done, they got a lot of credit as well. And my family did too. We had a meeting about what we were going to do to make it through. And so I think it's important to ask for the help you need.
And adding to that, in addition to seeking support, it's that whole thing when you tell someone about a goal that you have, they hold you accountable to it. So in addition to being able to support you, they can find out, make sure you're on track, and also when you're voicing what your wants and desires are in life, then other people can align with that too.
That's terrific.
It is incredibly terrific. And you know, this is something that I'm listening to you, and there's a part of me that's bristling up, and it's bristling up because I've always figured that if I wanted to get it done, I'm going to have to figure out how to do it on my own, because somewhere along the line, somebody's just going to, and it doesn't matter who it is going to come stand right in front of me and go, ha, 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 really? And, and by the way, that is something that I did face a lot in my early career growing up. And so I have this, I'm going to call it a chip on my shoulder. I'll just come right out and say it. I think I have a chip on my shoulder, and my chip on my shoulder is, why would somebody want to help me when I have this other conditioning? And I'm putting this out there because we don't know what anybody else's path was. We don't know the hardships that they are going through right now, the hardships they may have just come through, or the things that they have done to get where they have gotten, with or without support. What I'm hearing here from Karen and Rita is the importance of support. And by the way, I am a recovering chip on your shoulder person about asking for help. I am actively practicing that, and it's still incredibly hard for me. Yet its power is amazing. And when I ask and people step up, I just feel so filled with gratitude and so filled with love and so filled with appreciation that not only do I matter and need the space, the work that I am doing and I find fulfilling is actually also useful. And I'm feeling this concept of leadership coming up here. And I'm curious, we all have hardships. That's kind of where I started this particular piece. And when somebody looks like they have it all, or they have it all together, and they're still asking for help, that's our bias coming in. And so I'd like to know, when you see somebody coming along that says, oh, they've got it together, but they're asking for my help, do they really need it? Can I really say yes to this? Maybe I have to say no for my own benefit right now because I have to be so choosy. How do we know when, or what are the things that we could consider in evaluating when we can lift other people up with us instead of us and just go, I'm just going to lift you up right now because I can, and that's it. How do we know how to evaluate that, check in with that, even when we're asked, definitely, and maybe when we're not asked?
I think I myself struggle with the whole asking for help thing, and it's probably a chip on my shoulder too. That's okay. But when I do reach out, it's definitely to people that I feel I have in my corner, or it may not be someone in my corner, and just communicating with them and then showing them my passions may bring them into my corner. So I think, what was the original question?
Just keep going. You got the answer
Oh, I
right
got
here.
it. I can't remember. Well,
How do we know the discernment? How do we discern whether or not we need to say no because we need to, or we can just lift up because we can, or to make sure we're bringing people along? It's really not a question. It's kind of more of a, how do you just discern when is the right time?
I think we have to keep in mind too, we don't, like you said, we don't know what people are going through, and what may be a struggle for me may not be a struggle for somebody else, and what may be a struggle for someone else may not seem like much to me, but it is truly a struggle for them. And we can't always be in other people's shoes 100%, but we can at least be compassionate and understanding. And I think, if somebody does have a chip on their shoulder, they may not ask. By us reaching out or connecting even may make them feel a little more comfortable, even if they're just sharing their ideas or just relating to you, can be a benefit.
I think we underestimate the value of asking for help. I also struggle and feel like I should probably be able to do it myself. But particularly those who are in leadership roles in the workplace, when they ask for help and get the support of a person who works with them or for them, they're actually giving that person an opportunity to shine and grow. So asking for help can benefit both the asker and the asked. And a lot of times we underestimate the value of that. I can think back to a specific situation where there was a very gnarly task that I had this whole list of conventions and things I was supposed to be keeping track of. And I delegated the job to one of the women who worked for me. And she was very meticulously detail oriented, not so much for me. And she did such a fabulous job of that and was so proud. She got recognition in our unit for doing a great job of keeping track of who was working which conventions, whose turn it was, where they were. And these things were all over the country. She did a great job. And even years later, she mentioned to me how rewarding it was for her to do that task, and that I trusted her to do it. And so at the time I was thinking, she's got the perfect temperament to do this. I don't have time to do it. I'm going to ask her to do it. And I completely underestimated how important that was for her and how much of a boost it was for her to feel valued for something very specific. And so, it's just a small example of how we can underestimate the value of asking for help.
I think too that we have to remember, as leaders, we like to think that we can do everything, but we have to remember that we're not the experts at everything, and that, bringing a strong team together with the team players that have those skills that you're not so strong at builds the entire team as a whole too.
Absolutely. And the true value of a team is that the strengths of the team outweigh the strengths of each individual separately.
So I want to know from each of you, what does success look like to you?
I think, well, for myself, I have my checklist, my benchmarks, and I wanted to finish school. Um, One of the benchmarks will be is my daughter a successful adult someday. Just feeling like I'm getting the value out of my time and not wasting my potential, I guess you could say. I've shifted, I have long-term goals and short-term goals, and as long as I'm meeting my goals and being flexible where I need to be, I think success is a moving target.
Great answer.
Mm-hmm.
I think it does. And I think, it's different things for different people. And I think we have a bunch of different ways of measuring success. In my working years, I counted it to be hugely successful if I was earning a living that was supporting the family and not dying from overwork. And I had retirement targets, things I wanted to do in the future, and wanted to survive the future and earn a living that enabled me to have the freedom I anticipated. And so from this position, having completed those benchmarks, it's important to me to have made an impact on the lives of others in a beneficial way, and to be able to live with safety and security, but also to give back and to be able to help lift others, partly in recognition of the fact that there were many people along the way that helped and supported me, and I want to pay that forward.
I'm changing what the definition of success is. And it's more in line with what I've heard both of you say, in the sense that I'm thinking about this going, the way I used to do it was, I achieved a goal. I don't even stop to celebrate. I go, now this is what's next, or I knew what was coming next. And I don't even stop to celebrate exactly where we are. Like when the Voice of Old Business Radio hit the 100th show, I was like, great, we hit 100. Now we're going to hit 200. It didn't even occur to me that 100 shows is actually a big deal. And to be able to stop and celebrate and say, wow, Eva, Scott, the rest of the team, this is great. We just kept going to the next one. And so for me, being able to change it and stop and go, you know what? It's not necessarily a celebration. It's definitely a pause and an acknowledgement of the work and the effort that came in so far. And then, okay, here we go. Right. And then on top of that, we have seasons, and we do it that way specifically so we can stop and celebrate now. One, we can take a break because breaks are necessary to change pace of things. And two, we can actually say, hey, look how far we've come. And based off of how far we come, we can sit with that. And during our break, we can say, now, where do we want to go next? And we're building that next together, in addition to this overall arching thing that I have set out as here's what's going on for the show. Together, we're making our next milestone. So it's that concept of slowing down to speed up. Because when people are in at the beginning of figuring out where we are going, when we get there, there's a lot more celebration that can occur. There's a lot more accomplishment that can be recognized because nobody had to be bought in, if you will. They were part of the thing and they were like, yeah, this is great from the beginning. We can't always do that, of course, but when we can, it's really important. And it's even more important when we're doing it ourselves, considering we have 3 women here who are working on asking for help, who know they have accomplished a lot, other people can say, wow, amazing, Karen, amazing, Rita. I can't believe everything that you've overcome and the success that you have achieved. And you're like, what? So I want to acknowledge that you're not doing that what thing at this particular moment. So we have another question, and this is Philip's question, and I think this is incredibly powerful. This is really important because one of the reasons that the Colorado Women's Education Foundation exists is to support other women. To this day, even through my grandmother was in a period of time where women were paid less than men. This is a reality. This is a proven fact. It's documented year after year, and it is 2018. Now, so with that setup, here's Philip's question. Jess, do your guests think that things will continue to get better for women in the workforce? If so, how long before there's true parity with men?
Okay, well, I heard a statistic. I do think things will continue to get better because awareness cannot help but change. I also think that it's a whole lot slower than what we would like to see and what we anticipate. The progress has not been steady. There's been ups and downs. And I heard a prediction that if we continue on the trajectory that we're on, it will be 100 years before
Wait a
we're.
sec. What? 100 years, according to that statistic?
And I can't tell you the source. It was something that I heard recently. That it would be 100 years before parity is achieved. So that's distressing, of course. And one of the ways women can combat that is to achieve additional degrees. I just found something on the internet that is called a wage gap report. And apparently women need one more degree than men to earn the same salary. So that's not great news. But it certainly reinforces the value of what Colorado Women's Education Foundation is doing, and that is to support women in getting their degrees, whatever degree they're going for. And hopefully, as women continue to educate themselves and as the world becomes more aware, that discrepancy, that wage gap will narrow.
Yeah, I think there's several layers of how this can be addressed. I think things have certainly improved. I think that we can continue the conversations in the workplaces and bring to attention and awareness, where there's an assumption that you can't do something, and you come back and say, hey, remember, you thought that I couldn't do that, and here I am, and I sailed it. I nailed it entirely. And then I think the other thing, as a mother of a 9-year-old little girl, I just trying to make sure that the incoming generations are also more aware. And in a way, I have it a little easier because I'm a single mom. So there's not as much gender disparity happening at home because mom does everything. So, and I try to encourage her and her classmates and her schoolmates. I teach a robotics club at her school, and really encouraging the girls to continue to participate and just embracing all that they want to learn, and just keeping them motivated. And I hope that we're raising our little boys too in the same way, to knock down all of that disparity that's happening. I listened to the founder of Girls Who Code talk about how even when we raise our kids at a small age, we teach our boys to be brave and our girls to be safe. And really, we should teach our girls to be brave as well, and not just picking them up when they fall down. Oh, honey, it's okay. It's just helping them be brave and to face the challenges in the world, and treating everyone equally at a young age. And hopefully they just adopt that as a lifestyle as an adult as well.
What makes it bold to embrace the power of education today?
I think, I can talk a little bit about, going through school. When I started school, I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do. I had been restaurant manager, so I thought I would get a business degree. I got partway in and I was like, oh man, everybody already has this degree. And I felt kind of like, I'm already in it, I'm going to ride through. And at some point I took a programming class and was like, this is what I need to do. It was challenging, exciting. I loved it. And I kind of ran with that. But some of the things that I also got out of school, which I sought out these resources on my own, was I took on leadership positions. I challenged some of my teachers that wanted us to write a paper on this or that, and said, hey, you know what? I'm actually really interested in this instead. And can I write about this piece of technology or whatever it was? And then so I was constantly, even though I was following the path of my schooling, but I was also had an end goal in mind of how this is going to impact my future, and how can I use this, leverage this research opportunity for something that I'm interested in the future. And I think the leadership skills and the opportunities that I got in school really translated into, I started my own business, and a lot of the research and the knowledge that I got from that got from my schooling and the additional assignments that I did or the different paths that I took and that. So there's not just the education piece, it's all the other little outcomes, figuring out who you are, what you want to do, and where you want to go, what some of your goals are, some of those unspoken things that were equally important.
I think that it's bold to embrace the power of education because it's truly a great way to change the world. When the individual changes and improves themselves, they also change and improve the lives and the world around them. So it's incredibly bold to embrace the power of education and change the world.
You heard it here, ladies, gentlemen, beginning your career people, middle of the career people, toward the end of your career people, all people, we can make a difference. You're going to find the program notes for The Power of Education at voiceofboldbusinessradio.com/P170. That is voiceofboldbusinessradio.com/P for program 170. You may also search the site for The Power of Education. Thank you, Rita. Thank you, Karen. And thank you, audience. Everybody who's listening, think about somebody who would benefit from having this information in their hands right now. Tell them what platform you listened. Is it iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, wherever it happens to be? Send them the link. Tell them to listen and make sure that you are using hashtag VBB Radio, using email address radio@reddirection.com, and even following me and reaching out directly on Twitter at Jess_Dewell, because it's the conversation that we're having today that determines what a leader is and what effective leaders look like, sound like, and act like. It's all about our practical application of the information we're listening to and we choose to act on. Remember the power of education.
Subscribe at thevoiceofboldbusiness.com and get more information, program notes, and past episodes. Bold leaders approach each situation and focus on action to achieve a higher level of leadership. Jessica Dewell, your business advocate, is the host of the Voice of Bold Business Radio. Thank you for joining us.